Minnesota. Beneath this vast veil of snow and ice, 10,000 lakes lay dormant through any typically frigid winter. With nighttime temperatures routinely dipping 10 to 20 below, it's not uncommon for lakes to remain completely frozen over through May, and sometimes even into early June. Right in the heart of Minnesota lies the small town of Brainerd, known for its hospitality.
Have a good weekend, Mavis and Anna.
The legend of Paul Bunyan, and the recreational activities the 450 surrounding lakes provide. Even when all of these lakes are coated with 3 to 4 feet of ice. All of them coated in ice, that is, except for one. In the center of North Long Lake, a mysterious winter wound has opened. Inexplicably, a hole measuring 1.5 miles long by 400 feet wide has opened up in the ice, baffling local residents.
Because at 20, 30 below, that sucker should be froze over, and it doesn't.
How can you have a hole, just wide open water, with no streams, no river, no nothing running into it, that last week was 3 feet of ice? What's going on?
Mornings, I used to be able to look at from my house on my deck and see the steam coming up from the open water.
Despite numerous theories and scientific investigations, no concrete explanation for this giant black hole has emerged.
What is this? This is not really a hole in the ice. It is the black hole. And so when I went down, I really didn't know what to expect.
So the more deeply you dig into this, the more puzzling it becomes.
This week, we travel to one of the coldest regions of the country to get to the bottom of a small-town phenomenon that's slowly being woven into the fabric of American legend. Join me as we unravel Minnesota's very own provincial puzzler. The mysterious black hole here on North Long Lake is not the first tale to touch Brainerd, Minnesota. Through the years, many faces have passed through and transformed this small town.
My grandfather came here in 1871 from Sweden.
So I was born and raised in a log house until I was 11 years old. We did not have running water electricity.
My family's been there for a long time, worked in the old railroad shops.
But through the years, one face remains unchanged, that of the winter freeze. Unfazed by the long winters, the Scandinavian immigrants who settled here at the end of the 19th century soon founded communities around the flourishing timber industry.
This area was called the Pineries because of the abundance of pine, particularly the white pine. So a lot of logging was done to begin with. The majority of it was done from about 1880 to about 1905.
To transport this valuable commodity back east to the needs of a growing nation, the railway system sought a place to cross the mighty Mississippi.
The Northern Pacific built a railroad through here, and when we crossed the river, put the bridge in, the town mushroomed around that.
In just a few short years, the scattered shanties housing lumberjacks and their families flourished into a viable community with its own schools, government, and legends. It was in freezing bunkhouses like these that impoverished lumberjacks huddled around blazing furnaces to create one of America's greatest folk heroes, Mr. Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan was from Brainerd. When they logged off in that some of this area here for the railroad, they had Paul Bunyan to come in here, and I mean, he could cut more down in one day with an axe, and it could take a crew for years, you know.
Tall tales spread of how Paul and his best friend, Babe the Blue Ox, actually created Minnesota's 10,000 lakes by stomping heavy holes through the forests. As local embellishments aggrandized this provincial fable to the stature of national symbol, Paul and Babe came to embody the strength and the vastness of a new America and its northern territories.
Today, in the very footfalls of this 48-foot giant, a new, much more mysterious legend is taking shape.
February 25th of 2002 was a wintry Monday like any other here in Brainerd. The Santa Fe westbound rumbled by just before noon. Wally the postman was handing out mail to downtown shop owners. And Sheriff Klang was keeping the peace on his daily rounds. Most people tried to stay warm inside, while those who did brave the outdoors bundled themselves up against a bitter sub-zero frost. But just north of these quiet frozen streets, in the west bay of North Long Lake, something strange was happening. Despite months of Arctic temperatures sheathing the surrounding lakes in 3 to 4 feet of ice, North Long Lake was beginning to open. Overnight, as temperatures continued to fall, the hole continued to grow. By sunrise, it had become massive, spanning 1.5 miles long and over 400 feet across. That afternoon, less than 24 hours after its birth, the black hole had become the talk of the town.
It looked like blue, open water. And I thought that was kind of odd.
Every time I drive by there, I just automatically, it's a reflex action. I look over there.
And everybody knows about that black hole.
I've never seen anything like it in 89 years.
This winter, when the Farmer's Almanac forecasted even colder temperatures than last year, few thought the hole would, or even could, return. But when it did, no one doubted its place in the community.
This is the Black Hole Martini. It's got Stoli Vanille and the Black Zambuca. Got a little gummy worm.
Oh, it's very good. I came out here to Brainerd to not only witness the black hole for myself, but to see if I could help arrange the pieces of this provincial puzzle.
North Long is right across the street from where I live. And it's like, okay, where'd this thing come from? What is this? How can you have a hole, just wide open water, with no streams, no river, no nothing running into it, that last week was 3 feet of ice? What's going on?
The town itself of Brainerd and Baxter is probably about 20,000. And in the summertime, it quadruples. We have a lot of people that vacation here. We have roughly in the 30-mile area, 420 lakes. But as far as the hole, I mean, you'd wonder why. Because at 20, 30 below, that sucker should be froze over. You want to know my theory on it?
I was worried sick about getting these photos because that's something you normally don't see in a newspaper, or underwater photos, because it's not really a hole in the ice. It is the black hole. And so when I went down, I really didn't know what to expect.
I'm just doing it to help people out that want to go out there. I'm no tour guide or nothing like that. Mornings I used to be able to look at from my house on my deck and see the steam coming up from the open water. Well, it's moved that way, and it's got a little bigger. Don't have no idea. Nobody does. There's a lot of theories, but, you know, just can't figure it out.
The 30 Lakes Watershed District is a state organization. What we try to do is tell the people what to do to take care of their lakes.
And as one thing led to another, we decided, well, we better really look into this thing.
On April 8th, 2002, the 30 Lakes Watershed District authorized the investigation of the hole. You'll meet a man tomorrow that knows limnology, and that's Al Civizar. You'll never find a man who knows more about water than that.
Yep, he'll give you nothing but straight answers. He'll be very informative.
The Sheriff's Department asked us to do a thermal scan of where the hole is, which is North Long Lake's West Bay. It isn't the movement of water that's keeping it open. It's the temperature of the water that's keeping it open. And even though that seems kind of trivial, it's very dynamic. And I think any scientist that doesn't see like a higher order of power is blinded, because all you gotta do is look out the window or look in front of you. Why do you see what you see?
Well, there's been a number of interesting cases over the years. I had a chance to go off on my own and do some other types of investigations, and that's where I kind of came up with some of these other pieces of evidence. As a lake detective, I know I'll be back out there this summer because I suspect there's still groundwater coming in. So it would be a whole new type of discovery, maybe a whole new area to pursue as we work and study on lakes.
So what exactly is causing the mysterious hole here in the lake? Fearing a potential environmental danger, the 30 Lakes Watershed District, in conjunction with the city of Brainerd, launched an investigation.
We ran just about everything we could think of on it.
The acidity of the water, the pH of the water, they've measured the temperature of the water, they've measured the currents of the water.
Airplane overflights.
Airplane overflights, yep.
They've had divers go down.
Dye samples.
They use cameras and lights.
Infrared cameras of various types.
I expected to see crystal clear water. It wasn't crystal clear, it was hazy. It's kind of greenish looking, which is sort of unusual for winter, to have green water.
They're going, okay, now, what's going on? I mean, did ground seepage water start coming in? A new spring open up that hadn't been there before?
We took a look at the thermal characteristics of the lake. 3 cameras under that wing and 2 cameras under that wing right now. And we just watch TV up here, and the cameras are underneath the wings, or we put them out the window there. We set up transects along the whole hole, and they were all GPSed in. We got some pretty good data that day.
After weeks of analysis, the much-anticipated report on the black hole phenomenon was finally released.
We have found no indication that there's anything that's going to affect water quality. Not a lot to suggest it could be due to runoff. We don't have a lot to suggest it's due to groundwater.
Didn't find nothing. They put dye in the water. There was no movement. And the weeds that were down there, they weren't moving, so there's no current down there.
Whatever it is, we haven't found it.
The more deeply you dig into this, the more puzzling it becomes.
I've gotten calls from people and say they think it's UFOs, they think it's space debris.
I actually think it could be a meteorite.
They thought that if you looked at the crack right, it almost looked like the Virgin Mary's face.
We had a tornado here in town just about 3 years ago.
Pressure. You know, notice all the concrete?
I think it's probably the trucks on the highway vibrating the ice.
There were absolutely millions and millions of freshwater snails in that spot. So something is obviously drawing that life form to that area.
There was a lot of KGB activity in this area in the Cold War. They had like a little storage spot with a suitcase that potentially could have had some kind of nuclear device. So they were thinking maybe that had been deposited in the lake, and that radiation was causing this thing to open up.
I noticed in the internet edition of the Brainerd Daily Dispatch that there's a section that's devoted just to the hole. Yeah, there it is on the upper right. What do you believe is causing the hole? So could you just read those off to us?
Yeah, underwater currents, volcanic action, thermal springs, large schools of fish, microorganisms, or SpongeBob SquarePants.
I want to see what's number 1 right now.
Okay, leading number 1 is, well, it's running pretty tight there between SpongeBob and thermal springs.
They're actually, statistically, they're tied at 38%.
Right.
From the inconceivable to the insane, I thought I'd heard just about every take on this mysterious black hole. And then I finally tracked down a man who was rumored to have a theory that many people felt, well, held water.
Name is Steve McComas, lake detective.
Yeah, I don't know if he gets paid for what he does or what he calls himself the lake detective. Well, what's that?
The groundwater usually comes in at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 50, 51 degrees. That's warm water in wintertime. So in a nutshell, the way these lakes probably open up is it's warm water melting the ice. groundwater.
I've got that right in front of my house. So and that comes from groundwater. We know that. But this stuff is 25 feet deep, you know. And to keep that heated up to 40 degrees on the surface is impossible.
A lot of BTUs to keep that big hole open. You bet.
That's a lot of area.
For a hole in North Long Lake to open up like that, you need a special glacial or geological setting. You need what's called preferential flow channels, almost like a pipeline, almost like a pipe of sand and gravel, and groundwater hits these gravel fingers or these preferential flow channels and then moves exceedingly fast. That's how we can get these holes opening up in 20, 30 feet of water. Is that?
However, we didn't see the evidence that Steve saw.
That's right.
Well, plus we would have been able to detect this rise of water with the dye, if nothing else. If there's any water movement, we'd have had that nailed.
So if groundwater is the source, then we would expect there to be some current, some movements in the water.
That's right.
As far as I know, they had some divers go down in the hole, and they put some dyes into it, and they didn't detect any movement, and then you tell me what happened. Did they detect any movement at all?
No, they didn't. But it's like finding a black cat in a dark room. Someday, if I can put that seepage meter right over that spring, then that gives you some pretty good proof. We haven't done that yet. Mm-hmm. So everything's on the table yet.
He said that it might be this.
Yeah.
No, not it is. It might. Well, there's lots of mights.
Speaking with the lake detective, it occurred to me then that if I was going to put the pieces of this puzzle together, I needed to go to the hole and put these theories to the test. However, there was one small problem. You see, the mysterious black hole here in North Long Lake has proven to be a true provincial puzzler. The very day before my crew and I drove into town to do this story, the hole here in the lake had frozen over, just as mysteriously as it had opened up a few weeks earlier. As the days went on with still no signs of a hole opening up, my concern slowly gave way to panic. How was I going to tell this story? More importantly, how could I solve a mystery that no longer even existed? On the verge of giving up, I remembered an important lesson life taught me. Sometimes, the brightest clues are buried in the biggest of obstacles. And with that in mind, I took another look at this lake, only to discover that the pieces of this puzzle had been lying all around me. I remembered something Ken Rush told me in passing the very morning I arrived in Brainerd.
That just happened the other night, the snow.
When, last night?
No, night before. Well, it was still snowing yesterday morning. Otherwise, there was a lot of clear ice around here.
Puzzle piece number 1, the snow. A typical winter here in northern Minnesota receives about 40 inches of snow. Due to the extreme cold, this snow tends to stay around, blanketing the surfaces of the lakes until the middle of spring. However, the last 2 winters, the only 2 winters when the hole has appeared, mind you, things have been anything but typical.
For the last few years, we haven't had much snow.
Everything is going south of us. We can look down and it's going down through Iowa and going over to Washington and New York and so forth. Well, I don't know, we had 5 inches of snow up here this year. And now they're getting another snowstorm south in Iowa today, and they're expecting another 12 inches, which is 250 miles south of us.
We're way below average on snowfall. Way below.
Without the thick blanket of snow that usually covers these lakes throughout the winter, the water below the ice greets a visitor it normally doesn't see for months. Puzzle piece number 2, the sun. Acting as a greenhouse, the lake absorbs the sun's visible light. When this light is converted to heat upon hitting the lake bottom, it cannot escape. This trapped heat then slowly raises the temperature of the lake until there's enough warm water to create an open hole. Now this may explain why the hole appeared on North Long Lake the past 2 winters, but why didn't holes appear in other lakes? After all, the sun shines on all of the 450 surrounding lakes. So what was so special about the west bay of this lake?
Now the one thing that might be unique in this area is that, again, that is a pretty big bay, but very shallow. Most lakes are going to drop off a little bit deeper than that. You drive right across the road, right across 371 and get into Gull Lake, and it's much deeper, down to 40 or 50 feet.
Puzzle piece number 3, the strange shape of North Long Lake. Imagine two cars, a Cadillac and a pickup. Both vehicles are covered under a thick blanket of snow. We then make a clearing of equal size on both windshields. Now, though these two clearings are identical in size, the volumes of the cabins within these two vehicles is of course quite different. Thus, the pickup, due to its relatively smaller cabin, would warm up much more in the same amount of time than the large Cadillac with its deep and spacious cabin. The same principle holds for the lakes. For the sun to warm up enough water to melt 3 to 4 feet of ice, a tremendous amount of heat is needed, which will require a vast stretch of surface area, a big clearing on a big windshield. This already rules out about 85% of the surrounding lakes, which are considerably smaller than North Long Lake. Of the remaining lakes, which are even larger than North Long, the Cadillacs of Minnesota, let's say, their considerable depth make it impossible to produce warm enough waters to open up the ice. Thus, having the unique properties of a vast stretch of surface area but relatively shallow depth below, North Long Lake can act as a very efficient thermal trap if sunlight is able to travel through the ice. So, factoring in all 3 pieces of this puzzle, we can explain not only why the hole had opened, but also account for why the phenomenon only appeared on North Long Lake. It follows then that if there was any considerable amount of snowfall on North Long Lake while it was still open, the exposed surface area would be dramatically reduced, which would not allow enough energy to be created to keep the hole open. This is exactly what happened when 7 inches of snow fell right before I arrived in Brainerd. So theoretically, if the process were somehow reversed and all the snow in the lake were to somehow be cleared, then maybe, just maybe, the hole would reappear. But all this is just talk, and the hole is not going to open up with words alone. To see if my greenhouse theory can hold any water, I've got to take action. And for that, I turn to the tremendous support of the Brainerd community. To create a clearing of the size necessary for this theory to even have a chance is no small undertaking. But fortunately, I found a group of mystery lovers that will stop short of nothing to get to the bottom of this provincial puzzler. After days of tremendous labor, the clearing is made, and now there is nothing to do but wait and hope for the best. Despite a bright sun above for days and days on end, nothing seemed to be happening to the frozen ice below. If it wasn't the greenhouse effect that was keeping this lake open, what on earth could it possibly be? Maybe it was millions and millions of freshwater snails. What about those trucks vibrating the nearby highway? My mind was racing through all the possibilities as my final rays of hope were surrendering to the twilight. And then, on the 12th day, as the sun rose over the east bay of North Long Lake at 7:19 in the morning, my wondering was put to rest. Measuring approximately 300 feet across and 1,200 feet in length, this black hole is somewhat smaller than the original, which makes sense considering that only a portion of the lake's snow-covered surface was cleared off. Nonetheless, it's a hole whose size I feel even Mr. Paul Bunyan himself would appreciate. Thanks to the sun and the strength and generosity of the people of Brainerd, Minnesota, the book on this great northern mystery can be closed once and for all.
Join me next time as we may journey to your small town to unravel America's next great provincial puzzler.